Johnny Bryant. And I know a lot of people, if you know anything about the Knicks, when Johnny Bryant went to the Cavaliers because he was the defensive coach for the New York Knicks, if you know what the Knicks numbers were when Johnny Bryant was there as their defensive guy, they were one of the top 5 teams in the league. Johnny Bryant went to the Cavaliers. Go look at the Cavaliers defense this year and what they were ranked because of Johnny Bryant. They were amongst the league's top 5. Johnny Bryant's one of the best young candidates right now in the NBA. But if you could get Ime Udoka or Mike Malone, I go after the more experienced guy, especially if you're expected to win with a veteran team. This is not a young team. They're not an old team, but they're not a young team. This is a team that has been here before. Now they have the experience. And you look at the New York Knicks, there's a lot of questions if this team is actually getting along with one another. And I know everybody, there was pictures all over social media after they got knocked out of the playoffs with I think over 24 hours they were partying. All of them were partying and clubbing in New York. Does that look like a sad team? Does that look like a team that was upset after getting knocked off against a Pacer team that they were much better than? The answer would be no. And then there were stories coming out recently that nobody wants Jalen Brunson's father on the bench next year. None of them. There was 5 guys. There was reports saying that there were 5 starters. So it can't be Jalen Brunson. So it had to be Josh Hart, who was Jalen Brunson's good friend. Mikal Bridges, I know, is not a big fan of Jalen Brunson's father. OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns couldn't stand Jalen Brunson's father. And maybe McBride. There were 5 starters or guys that play a lot of minutes on this team that told Leon Rose, if he's on the team, trade me in the offseason. The press is trying to make a story and turn this into a team gathering that nobody's getting along, and this is going to be a cancerous team next year. I don't believe that. If it's Mike Malone or any of these coaches, I do not believe Jalen Brunson's father will be on the bench next year because they have their own coaching staffs that they're going to add. Rick Brunson worked with Thibodeau over there with the Timberwolves. He was very, very likable to Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau and them, if you know, Rick Brunson played for the Knicks in 99. Tom Thibodeau was an assistant coach for the Knicks in the 90s. He was Jeff Van Gundy's number one defensive mind on his bench. And he knew Rick Brunson. And so Rick Brunson's been following Tom Thibodeau for years. Now that Rick Brunson's no longer with the team, what does that tell me? It probably tells me Tom Thibodeau's no longer with the team. It tells me that Rick Brunson's probably not going to be on this coaching staff. Now, if he is, if I was any of these players, if I'm OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges or Karl Anthony Towns, I would not be happy. I would not be happy, but I do believe Leon Rose will listen to the players. I do. And again, Jalen Brunson, Joba, your father was a big supporter of what you did. He went to all your games. He watched you play. He didn't ask Joe Torre if he could be on the bench, did he? No. He doesn't have to be on the bench. He could be out in with the fans, watching the games, and talk to you at the end of the games. I don't know why Rick Brunson has to be on the bench and be there when there are timeouts and he's talking to the players. I wouldn't want that either, knowing that my son is the best player on the team. And by the way, did anybody watch the Celtics series after the series was over? And Rick Brunson went up to I think it was Stephen A. Smith, and Stephen A. Smith wanted to hug Jalen Brunson because he was so happy. Rick Brunson was in between them trying to speak to Stephen A. Smith, and Stephen A. Smith tried to nudge him out of the way so he could talk to Jalen Brunson. And that's a problem because Rick Brunson, who wasn't a great NBA player, he was a good backup player. He was on the bench for the Knicks. He wasn't a good player. His son's one of the best players New York's ever had, and he wants to brag about him. And again, nobody wants to go through Rick Brunson to talk to Jalen Brunson. But again, this is what happens when your father is in between your career. Who's his agent? Is it Rick Brunson? I don't know. I don't know who's actually Jalen Brunson's agent. I got a text from one of my friends recently, and we were going back and forth about Tom Thibodeau and does he deserve another chance to take this team as far as he could in the playoffs. And I've been saying this all season long that Tom Thibodeau does not belong with this New York Knicks. I thought that the Knicks should have fired him 2 years ago. Now, he took them to the Eastern Conference Finals thanks to Leon Rose making that trade with bringing Karl Anthony Towns in and Mikal Bridges. Karl Anthony Towns choked throughout the playoffs, and Mikal Bridges didn't show up in this Pacers series. But Tom Thibodeau took the Knicks as far as he could. I don't think he was going anywhere. I don't think he was going to take this team anywhere else. How far did he take the Bulls? He took them all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron James and the Miami Heat. He couldn't get over the hump. Over there with the Timberwolves, the furthest he took them was in the first round of the playoffs with Jimmy Buckets and Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. I'm not saying that he is not a great coach. I'm not saying he's not a winning coach. He is a winning coach, but he's not a winning coach where you think you're going to, as far as the regular season, like Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin won one Super Bowl, but he took Coward's team. He took the team that Coward put together, and he took them to the Super Bowl. And then since he was building his own team, he hasn't gone to the Super Bowl since.
Do you remember very early in the season, Knicks and Timberwolves played, and Dante DiVincenzo went after Rick Brunson at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. And started shouting at him. And during the game, Dante was also shouting at Tibbs, saying, "Can't finish, right, Tibbs? Can't finish," after he got an and one. But they had to be separated. I remember this from the very beginning of the season. I didn't think anything of it until this story came out, just earlier today, or was it last night, or whatever it was. It's really problematic, and I've seen things like that before. Now, we know that Rick Brunson's a Tibbs guy dating back to his playing days. He also coached with him in Minnesota. I don't know the whole details of the legal trouble he might have been in or not been in, but my understanding is Tibbs cared for him in that situation and gave him a job. So he's a Tibbs guy. Now that Tibbs is gone, I don't know what that situation's going to be like, but it sounds like he's going to have to take a step back if this team's going to work, because it's not working, that communication level. The last thing I'll say is I do think Tibbs, to go back to the Knicks and Tibbs, I do think he had to go. And there's the messaging, sure, the people complaining, the new players not fitting in, as well as the older players. Once they traded away Julius Randle, the chemistry wasn't the same, I didn't think. Not that Julius Randle's a better player than Karl Anthony Towns, no one's saying that. The chemistry was certainly a lot better. And I do think that that's a thing. And I think that might have had to do with coaching. Mikal not getting the shots that he's used to. They didn't really get him going this year enough. And I think this that I want to put up here is the one that drove me the most crazy. This was in the first round of playoffs against Detroit. Do you remember this game when Tibbs didn't just left Hart and Brunson on the standing in there, didn't call the timeout he had, and they lost this game because he just let the ball keep going with frickin' Campaign out there, chucking shots, and they don't get in and we lose that game. He'd had a number of screw-ups with getting guys in, not calling timeouts fast enough. I thought throughout the playoffs.
I think after Rick Carlisle just completely outcoached him in that series, that was the dagger.